Welcome to Scorpio Soul Time. This is my esoteric journey where I'm consistently learning progress over perfection. I'm Ronique and I appreciate you joining me here today. It's always nice to have you as we navigate the astrological energies going on in the heavens above, and as they say, as above, so below. So whatever is happening up in the planetary realms, we are affected here on Earth. So thanks for joining me. If you haven't already, I would love if you subscribe to Scorpio Soul Time so you can know when we have new videos out. And I would also love, I was listening to another intuitive the other day, and I realized that every time you listen to any intuitive that has these readings, it's very important that you come back at different times of that season, if you will. So if we're doing today, like we're doing the full moon in Gemini, instead of just listening to it right at the beginning, try coming back a few times, like in the middle of that 2-week period and even at the end, because you will realize that information comes out as the energies obviously get more potent throughout that season or throughout that time period. So every lunation cycle I do a video here on Scorpio Soul Time, and so I would encourage you to come back, like I said, in the beginning, the middle, and even at the end before it's going to go into a new lunation cycle, because you always will hear not only different information will resonate with you, but you'll also find that maybe things didn't play out in your world yet until, you know, the mid-cycle or until the next cycle. And sometimes it takes actually a full lunation cycle later before you see or you feel what happened. So I think that's always very interesting. So I thought I would pass that along. So today we're going to clear the energies with my singing bowl. When I hit the bowl, I want you to breathe in and then breathe out, and that will help clear your energies and will also help the energies resonate with you. So I'm going to do it 3 times. Very good. Okay, so let's get started. So today, as I said, we are talking about the full moon in Gemini, which is happening at 19 degrees on December 12th at 12:11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you are on the West Coast or Central Time, or if you're anywhere in the world that is more west of Eastern, then it's going to happen for you on December 11th. So here you can see I have this card, which is the Lovers. And if you remember in the traditional Rider-Waite tarot deck, it usually shows 2 people almost suggesting Adam and Eve holding hands. It usually represents partnerships. It can be partnerships in romantic situations, but it can also mean partnerships in business, friendships, relationships. And I think this one is interesting because I'm actually using the Tarot of the Golden Wheel deck. And so this deck I really love, by Mila Losenko. It has really pretty imagery. But I like in this one where it's almost like this yin and yang of like these 2 women and this man. They're kind of deciding who is the right person, you know, who should he pick. And so I think that this is interesting because Gemini is all about duality. And it's this sign of, you know, thinking through things over and over, maybe trying to figure out what decisions you need to make. And so this woman you can see here in red, she's walking this way and she has a cup in her hand, while this woman is more, so this is kind of suggesting fire, while this woman who's holding like this scroll, and you can see the wheat behind her, so she's representing more of the earth. But then you see the snake coming in here, almost like, you know, the snake in whole Adam and Eve. So, you know, which way, more of the rocky plane, more of the earthly plane, more of the fire, more of the water behind them. So I think that this Lovers card, which is number 6 in the major arcana, is always very interesting in terms of Gemini. So during this full moon in Gemini, remember now, this is the last full moon of 2019. And so a full moon is when the moon sits across the sky from the sun. So the sun right now is in Sagittarius, and then the moon is in Gemini. So this full moon is going to be all about what type of information, what type of communication, because Gemini is ruled by Mercury. And so the planet Mercury rules communication, information, but with the Sagittarian sun across the sky, which is more about expanding your mind, traveling, there's going to be this sense of where is it in your life do endings need to occur that could possibly require you to think through things more than once. And work is definitely, and career and anything that you value in terms of resources are really going to come up at this time, because remember, Capricorn, we are now literally, Jupiter just went into Capricorn in this last week and will be there until December 2020. So there's this sense of the Capricorn work. What is it that, you know, you value? Where have you put in the energy? Where have your fruits of your labor paid off? Or where do you still need to put in work? But then there's the moon here in Gemini that is suggesting thinking through things, information coming in. And remember, anytime you're at a full moon, that means things are coming into culmination. Like your life somewhere is going to get more informative. There's going to be information that comes out that maybe you didn't know about before. But also with Gemini, you're now like, okay, maybe I need to think through this more. Maybe the information I was given earlier in the year is no longer valid. So I want you to think through a question in your mind that you want to know information about at this full moon in Gemini, because as we round out 2019, there's going to be this sense of what no longer is working for me. What did I try in 2019, but now I need to start fresh in 2020? What is it that I need to take more time thinking through? And what is it that this Jupiter in Cancer is going to, I said Cancer, that was interesting because I just saw the moon card, which is ruled by Cancer. So this Jupiter in Capricorn, which is ruling work, what information, I just heard, take that card out. So what information do you really need to think through? So like I said, this is the last full moon of 2019. And when I say that, I'm now realizing that that's pretty significant. Like, this is the end of a decade here. This is the end of having to really hone in on what has worked for you this year and what has not. And I think especially, I think it's very interesting that Jupiter moves into Capricorn, because we just came out of this Jupiter in Sagittarius, which is its ruling sign. So you probably had a lot of information around travel, around new beginnings, new adventures, new ways to tackle things, since Sagittarius is all about, really going on the adventure, going forward, moving forward. But now you've probably moved forward from a whole different place than you were in November of 2018. So now Jupiter is asking you to hone in on what is it that you value in your career, in your job, Where is it that you need to show up in order to get the rewards, if you will? Excuse me. So, as we move into this full moon in Gemini, Gemini really is this sign that is saying, okay, where is it in your life have you been contemplating priorities? Where is it that you've had distractions at work and you need clarity? Is it time for you to find a new job? Is it time for you to go back to school and hone a new craft? Is it time for the people around you in your work life? Is it time for you to move on from them? So let's look at the cards, because I definitely can see a lot of energy here. And if you look here, we actually have all major arcana cards, which means and suggests that this is the end of a major period here, because in the past we have the Devil card. Let's get that in frame. So here is the Devil, and the Devil is number 15. So that's in the past. We have in the present, we have the High Priestess, which is number 2 in the major arcana. So that's the present. And then in the future, we have the Moon card. And this Moon card is number 18, the Moon in the major arcana. So already you can feel this theme that since there's no minor arcanas in terms of the past, the present, and the future, that already suggests that major shifts are occurring. So the major arcana cards are always cards of major themes, while the minor arcana are more like energies that move from day to day. So this is already suggesting that this last full moon of 2019 is going to be a major shift for the collective, but for each one of us. And it's kind of exciting too, because it's kind of like we get to do like New Year's like 2 or 3 times in December, because at this full moon on the 12th of December is in Gemini, but then we actually are going to have a new moon on December 26th in Capricorn. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe that new moon could be an eclipse, I'm pretty sure. So that's going to be energy that goes for 6 months. And since that new moon in Capricorn on December 26th is also an eclipse, you're now looking at 6 months worth of this energy in Capricorn. And so that's why I'm telling you, like, start thinking now about your work life, about your work life, your career. What is it that needs refinement? What is it that is no longer working for you? Because I guarantee you this theme of Capricorn, work hard, you're not going to get the benefits of Jupiter. Remember, Jupiter is benefic. You will not get the benefits of Jupiter until you show Jupiter what you've done in your job, in your work. Or do you really deserve what it is that you're wanting? So let's look at the cards here. Oh, and then I forgot about the Queen of Swords. So let's talk about the Queen of Swords first, because this was the only minor arcana, but this was on the bottom of the deck. So this is more kind of like the general energies that are going to be surrounding us. And the Queen of Swords is this woman of very high stature. She is the sword, so she is all about air energy, and she is representative of what information, what clarity do you need in your life to be able to make informed decisions. In the Rider Waite deck, she's usually sitting with her arm out and sword in hand, beckoning like, okay, let's go. Let's cut through this. Let's cut through the BS. Let's figure out what we need to do and make it happen. And so this Queen of Swords and her crow here, which usually symbolizes magic, but also intuition, magical themes, ideas. The Queen of Swords energy is a great energy to have moving into a year that is going to be full with a lot of indecision, but also like there's this whole conjunction of Pluto and Saturn in January is going to be very benefic, very karmic, and we've never seen this energy in our lifetimes. And I think this Queen of Swords is already kind of like bringing in, you're going to have clarity, you're going to have information that comes in, but you're also going to be more comfortable with yourself. I feel like the Queen of Swords is kind of like, we're no longer going through this like, well, maybe I should do this, maybe I should do that. I think this Gemini full moon is really going to help us get clarity and, like the Queen of Swords, cut through the BS, make decisions, and go into 2020 with this new plan. So let's start with 15, the Devil, which is the past card, number 15. And in the Rider-Waite deck, the Devil usually is like, this Capricornian looking kind of goat devil. And he is kind of like that. It's kind of like, I always call it the in my feelings card, because the Devil is like, what things inside of you, what ego-driven thoughts have you been playing out over this last year, over this last lunation cycle? What is it that you've been, it's almost been eating at you, that you've told yourself is true, but it really isn't? And I'm sure you can think of a million. It can be dealing with your health. It can be dealing with, your work-life balance. It can be dealing with your family. The Devil is usually like this energy inside of you that's like, what is it that is making, like, it's almost infuriating you? And I love how the Devil, we always associate with fire. But I love how this one is this man with his sword, and right here there's this fire, just kind of like the embers are slowly getting bigger, they're slowly getting bigger, and our own ego and our own mindset is what is making, it's fueling the fire. And the Devil is all about, get out of your head. Stop worrying about things you can't control. Stop worrying about ego-driven mindset themes that you will need to squash moving into 2020. And so I think that this is great that it's in the past, because this basically means leave all of the ego behind. It's time to move on. It's nice to see that this is not in the future, because this means that this is all done with. You've completed that cycle. You are ready to move on to the next step. So whatever question you asked at the beginning of this reading, know that all of that ego stuff is done. So in the present, we have number 2, the High Priestess of the Major Arcana. And the High Priestess is all about your intuition. And I actually love that it's right underneath the Queen of Swords, because if you noticed, the artist actually used almost similar coloring in terms of like the blues, the purples, which usually symbolizes intuition, clarity, mindset, no longer feeling bogged down, using your intuition. So I love the High Priestess, because this is saying to me that we're now getting more comfortable in our own skin. We're actually using our feelings, and when I say feelings, not necessarily emotional feelings, but we're using the clarity of mindset to, like, what was that gut feeling I felt yesterday when I was, getting ready to ride my bike, and then I was like, no, maybe I better not go down that path, and then later you hear of an accident, or not even something that major. It could be just something at work where you were going to call someone, you decided not to call them, and then later you hear, that person no longer is with the company, and it's a good thing you didn't reach out to them, or whatever. The High Priestess has always been this card that is like, use what your mind and energies are telling you. The universe always sends you messages. You always get clues about things, and some people call them coincidences, some people call it intuition, but that gut feeling that you feel, that is the High Priestess. That is her telling you, I like how she's holding this key, and then you see the moon back here. And it's basically kind of showing you like this area in your life is what you need to listen to. The owl is always this bird of wisdom, intuition, magic. I also often associate the crow and the owl in kind of like that similar type realm where they're both like very not just magical, but the owl has like this wisdom, especially since he can turn his head around almost 360. It's almost like he can see everything. He knows everything. He's been around for ages. And so the high priestess is this energy of like, you feel like you can now trust your own instincts, trust your own mind, and also like be able to be tapped into the energies that are going around you. I think that's really important as we move into 2020, because this full moon in Gemini, it's going to bring up information and communication that maybe wasn't too clear a month or two ago or earlier into the year. And so I think that it's nice to see this progression of going from worrying about things inside your head with the devil to now feeling comfortable and trusting what's in your head, what's in your gut. So I'm really liking this progression from the past to the present. And then the future, we have this moon card, which is the number 18 in the major arcana. And I really love this representation of the moon in this card because you can see we're still in those blues. You see how we literally went from this red fiery energy to this air energy of the high priestess and the queen of swords, and now we're to the moon, which is more that watery emotional energy. And I think that the blue is very befitting for us going into this wintry season. If I don't know if you remember the major arcana Rider Waite deck, where the moon usually is kind of like it's almost like the crescent moon, the full moon, but then it is looking down on, like, there's a wolf on one side and a dog on another. So once again, that duality is being brought up again, just like how Gemini full moon is coming up. And so I think that at this full moon and then going into that next like I said, in December 26th, on the December 26th new moon in Capricorn, this is going to come to a head. This is almost telling you, make your plan now, get clear now, because when we get to that new moon, when it's time for planting new seeds for the next 6 months on that December 26th, this is really telling you that is when you can manifest what you are wanting. It is time for you to move on from the old and step into this 2020 with like this renewed sense of like, I got this. I actually feel more comfortable in myself. I'm now realizing that, like I said, with that new moon in Capricorn, it's going to really center around what it is at your work, at your job, in your school life, if you've gone back to school, if you're someone who has taken the last year to like move around jobs, which is me. I'm literally at, I think, my 3rd job this year, but I'm now finally comfortable in where I'm at. You know, I'm finally at this place where I'm like, this is where I was supposed to be. It's like I had to go through this process, if you will, to be able to get to like this career that I'm like, okay, I'm being, you know, thought of as, you know, a leader. I'm being, you know, I'm really honing my craft, if you will. So I really think that in this full moon in Gemini, I encourage you to like look at yourself onto where you need to let go of things. I think, you know, we always do this thing with the resolutions, right? In January or December 31st, going into January, where we're making these new resolutions. And I think that this is really showing you, from the progression of the Devil, where you were just like too much worrying about everything that you could not control, to the High Priestess, that you're now like, you know what, I feel better with the decisions I've made, to the Moon, where you're like, this clarity is going to come in. But the Moon also sometimes suggests this Cancerian energy, where it now gets more emotional. So it moves from this air energy to this emotional energy. So be careful in this, next moon cycle, that you're not just leading with your heart. You still have this mental, what am I trying to say? So make sure that you're not just going on pure instinct, but you're also using your mind. Because what I can feel here is like the Queen of Swords, in that overall energy, she still wants you to use your intellect. She still wants you to use your mind. She still wants you to think through the possibilities. Don't just lead with your heart in the future. So this energy is almost like this yin and yang, which is that Gemini duality. There's this kind of like, okay, I want to do this because, like, I want to move to Paris and, start my modeling career. But then there's this part that's like, there's the Moon that's like so emotional, like you're excited about it. But then there's this Queen of Swords that's like, wait a minute. Do you have the money? Do you know anyone in Paris? Do you have any connections once you get there? Have you already done the research? So it's kind of like there's this duality that you're gonna come through. And at this full moon, you might get more information from that whole Gemini ruled by Mercury. You might get that communication clarity. But moving into this whole December 26th new moon eclipse, you're going to also have to plant new seeds. You're going to have to plant new intentions for 2020. You're going to have to figure out where is it that your work life, your career can really get solidified, and move past this 2019 devil that you had going around in your head and your ego. So I think it's going to be a really great December full moon in Gemini. I can't wait to talk to you for the December 26th new moon in Capricorn. That will be exciting. And I invite you to look back on Scorpio Soul Time's playlist. Look back at those eclipses that occurred this summer, because I would love to hear from each of you whether any of those themes resonated or came true, or which of them you're now moving on from. It would be interesting to see from those two eclipses this summer, we're now 6 months later, what new intentions do you want to plant for this next 6 months? So I look forward to talking to you next time on Scorpio Soul Time. If you would share, like, and subscribe, and share this video with your friends, I would really appreciate it. Thank you, and have a great new moon or full moon. See, I'm already talking about the new moon that I got excited. Have a great full moon in Gemini season, and I will see you at the new moon in Capricorn in 2 weeks. Thanks, and have a good day.